Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Engineer's Corner. So today we're going to be talking about starter gear for all you beginners out there and going into a brief description and summary of what it is you need and what it is you should get. So let's start.
Bago alamat, kami nagsulat sa aklat upang iangat, iulat ang karapat-dapat. Taas ang kamay sabay sa palakpak.
Alright, so when it comes to the gear every beginner engineer should get, you want to start off with more of the low-end gear as opposed to buying the more expensive high-end gear. And it's because before you can go and buy something expensive and invest money into it, you need to know what it is exactly that you're looking for and not just buy what people tell you. So if you start off with low-end gear, you can always upgrade later on after working out and realizing the ins and outs, the strengths and weaknesses of your low-end gear, and also figuring out what kind of sound or recording quality you really want. Because a lot of equipments add different characteristics to audio, so the best way to learn is to record, listen to it, and work with it. Okay, so let's go on and talk about just the basic equipment you'll need and what kind of price range you're kind of looking at. Alright, so first off, microphone, obviously, right? So for microphones, anything between the $100 to $200 price range, maybe even $300, you can get pretty reliable, decent quality. Some of the better brands out there is the Audio-Technica. They have like an AT20 series, which a lot of people use, and even the baby blue microphones. Those are really popular too, and those have pretty decent quality as well. Really great to start off with. I suggest getting what's known as a condenser mic, because you can use that to record a variety of different things, and it's very versatile, so you can record instruments if you want, and vocals as well. Once again, $100 to $300, great way to start off with a basic mic. Next is the audio interface. So basically what an audio interface does is take the analog signal from the microphone, convert it to digital, so binaries, ones and zeros, and that will be read by your computer, where you'll be able to modify it or work around with it using your digital audio workstation. DAW for short, and also known as the software you're going to use to record, edit, and mix your tracks. So for that, some of the brands I recommend you look into is the Focusrite and the PreSonus, because those are pretty reliable. A lot of people start off with those, and they do come with Ableton, I believe, or different various software that you can start off with. You just got to learn and play around with the software and get into it. There's tutorials on YouTube and so forth that can teach you, and really that's the way you got to learn these days. With Pro Tools 8 and I think anything else below, you need MBox or some kind of DigiDesign audio interface. Anything above, I believe you can use any kind of audio interface, but just a heads up, there are some software out there like Pro Tools 8 and below that require a certain specific audio interface to run with it. Next would be the recording headphones. So there's a difference between recording headphones and mixing headphones, and the primary being, one is obviously used for recording, so the back end of it would be closed to prevent leaking of audio into your microphone. Whereas the mixing headphones, they kind of almost always have some kind of mesh in the back, so that it allows the room sound to enter your hearing, and you'll be able to hear or perceive the spaces between instruments better. So with recording headphones, once again, get the one that's known as closed, prevent leaking. And I would recommend anything from $40 to $100 would be great. You don't really want to spend too much with it, just because you're just going to use it for recording. So as long as you get a decent quality, I wouldn't spend too much. Once again, like Audio-Technica, Shure, various different brands have them. And if you're paying $50 to $100, not really much of a big difference. So like I said, speaker monitors, I highly recommend over mixing headphones, because personally, mixing headphones don't allow you to hear a lot of the spaces between the instruments as well. And that's really important as you get into mastering mixing, being able to balance out different frequencies and the spaces between instruments. So I know I've been telling you guys everything is cool with the low end gear, but when it comes to studio monitors, I actually recommend you guys invest into a pretty solid one. Usually around $500 to $1,000, to be honest. And this is because, just like in painting, it doesn't really matter the tools you have. Well, it doesn't really matter if they're expensive or not. You can still make great paintings, but you need to be able to accurately see what you're doing and what you're creating. So same thing with music. Doesn't matter if you have the low end or high end gear, but if your speakers don't accurately show you or replicate the audio, you're gonna have a hard time making it sound good in headphones, cars, laptops, and so forth. So that's something I really recommend you get. Some of the popular ones are the Yamahas and the KRKs. I personally own the Yamahas and no complaints. So some of the other things that I haven't talked about or really delved into are the items like pop filters, mic stand, and microphone cords. So those three things are something you're gonna need, obviously, to be able to have a functioning studio. But prices on those don't really matter so much. You still get pretty good quality and they don't really affect your recording and so forth. So one of the other things I suggest is to purchase used audio equipment. They're all pretty reliable and for the most part last a long time. I actually own a couple and they're about 4 to 5 years already and they're still going strong and no complaints. Another thing to keep in mind is you're upgrading, right? Like what we talked about earlier. When it comes to the low end gear, it's a great way to get a feel of the quality and the ins and outs of all these audio equipments, because in the beginning it is a little confusing. Once you get into playing around with them, testing them out and using them in real applications, you're gonna slowly come up with what it is you want from your gear or what it's lacking so that you can upgrade. Another suggestion is to spread your budget between your recording gear and also the acoustic treatment of your room. Like we talked about in the first episode, it's really important on the way that your room sounds. So if you get a good balance out of both, you're sure to come out with pretty good quality recordings. So an example of this actually would be if you listen to Kendrick Lamar's Section 80 album. Mix by Ali said in an interview he was using a $200 mic, a $300 audio interface, Pro Tools, and probably one thing you guys won't have is the crack plugins. But just with those, he was able to create something that sounded really good. So that's it for today. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave it below. And if you haven't subscribed to Southeast Cartel, do so YouTube and Facebook. Thank you very much and see you guys next time.